Just do every other question, and then if any questions come up while we're answering these, just feel free to ask. So this is going to take about 10 minutes here. So the first question is from David. It says, Samson, how do you distribute your serves during a match on the opponent's side of the table? So what I think David means is, I think he means as far as how do you know when to serve long and when to serve short, and how do you know which locations to hit? So as far as that goes, I think the main thing to realize is that you may have some preferred locations, but even though you have preferred locations, at the same time, you still want to think about what are my opponent's weak points. So for example, I like to serve short to the forehand, but maybe this particular opponent is stronger short to the forehand. So maybe I have to serve half long to the middle, or maybe I have to serve long to the backhand. So for sure you want to serve to certain locations to help your game, but at the same time, you have to think, what are his weak points too? And you don't need to serve to all points equally. Some people think that they have to serve one short to the forehand, one long to the backhand, one short to the backhand, one long to the forehand. You don't have to. If there are certain areas that are stronger, you don't have to serve to every position on the table. Anybody have any questions about the serve?
Like to add this.
Sure, go for it.
Let's say you serve good, your opponent didn't any good.
Yeah.
Do you repeat the same, or no? Do you have any opinion about that? Should you repeat the same serve that your opponent missed?
So definitely you need to remember which serves worked, but it's going to be your call to say, are you going to serve the exact same serve right now, or are you going to serve it a couple serves later? For me, I like to look at my opponent's expression. So for example, he pushed my serve into the bottom of the net, and he's just like, oh, what's going on? And then he just gets ready to serve. I feel that he hasn't really adjusted well, so I would probably serve a similar serve, maybe not the same location, maybe a little bit different, but very similar. But if I feel that he pushed it in the bottom of the net and he steps back and goes like, okay, I have to adjust, then I can see that mentally he adjusted. So I might serve a similar serve, but a little bit maybe less spin. He adjusts under it, and then the ball pops up. So a lot of times it's depending on who you're playing against. For the players that think, you can use that against them because you know that they're thinking about the last one, so you can serve something different. The players who didn't think, maybe you can get 2 or 3 of the same serves in the same way.
Thanks. Brilliant answer.
Okay, good. Anybody else have any questions as to which serves you should serve or when you should serve them?
Do you ever save one special serve for a tight match?
So my best serves, I feel, are so valuable that I can get 5 or 6 points on that particular serve throughout the course of the match. So I could save it to 9-9 in the 5th, but if I serve it once at 9-9 in the 5th, the most I can get is 1 point from it, right? Whereas if I have a few good serves, sometimes I like to use them throughout the game because I may be able to get even more points on it. Does that make sense? Yeah, but it's good to have primary serves, but it's also good to have like backup serves. Like I don't usually serve tomahawk, but sometimes I get in trouble and if the score was like 4-4 and next thing you know I'm down 9-4, I serve a couple of those and the guy misses it and now the whole dimensions of the match are changed. So it's good to have primary serves, but it's good to also have maybe some different motions that you're not used to doing, but you can do just to mix it up. Okay. All right, what do you got? All right, this next question is submitted from Mike. It says, when I flip from the left side of the table, should I lead with my left foot? Typically when pushing, I normally lead with the foot that matches the side of the table that I'm on. Same apply to flipping. So if you're right-handed, and I don't think Mike is here, if you're right-handed, you should step in with the right foot. There's very, very, very small exceptions on the extreme wide backhand, but 99.9% of the time. So 999 times out of 1,000, you're going to move in with your right foot for the short game, no matter if you're pushing or flipping or smashing over the table. If it's very, very close to the net and very short, then you're going to move in with your right foot. If it's back a little bit, kind of mid-distance, then that's a different type of question. But if they're really, really, welcome Aiden, come on in. Really short to the net, you're definitely going to move in with your right foot because it gets your right side of your body, because you're right-handed, closer to the table. All right, and the final question of the day is from Jarvis. It says, what are the top 5 to 10 most important things you should look for in serve return? So I think that he's saying when you're returning the serve, what are you going to look for like from their serve? So the first thing that I would do is try before the match even begins to think about the last time you played them. Okay? If you didn't play them before, watch them play in a previous match and try to remember all the different types of serves that they serve and the significant ones. If you can do that, that's important. I know a lot of people, they'll lose the first game or two and they'll be like, yeah, I forgot about that serve that he had. That's why it's important for some players, if they take like notes and keep a notebook, they can kind of keep a sheet on each opponent. In Japan, they actually do that a lot. You'll even see at some of the pro tours, like Japanese national team players will pull out their notebook and they'll go over the stats on the other player. So before the match even starts, understanding what the possibilities are as far as what they served last time they played you. Keep in mind, some people do develop new serves, but for the most part, I feel the serves are pretty much the same from year to year. Okay? The next thing you have to be able to do is you have to be able to read based on his position that he's serving from. So if he's a righty and he's serving from over there, you need to position yourself a little bit more on this side. If he's a righty and decides to serve from the other side, you need to reposition yourself. So before he even tosses the ball, you need to look where is he serving from. The next thing you have to be able to do is watch his racket carefully. All right? If you can watch the racket and you can read the spin, whether it's back spin or whether it's top spin or side spin or nose spin, that's really ideal. If you, as soon as the ball leaves his racket, you should be able to tell on the table, on his side of the table, where the ball bounced to see if it's going long or short. You're going to move into position and then try to make a good push or a good flip or a good loop. I would say at your level, the #1 mistake on serve return is not doing a real stroke. Blocking the serve is not an acceptable return. You can push it, you can loop it, or you can flip it, and that's your 3 options. And people say, but I didn't know what it was, so I just decided to block it. When you block it, you feel the full effect of the spin, the ball bites into your rubber, and then it jumps wherever it wants to. If you can spin it with a loop, or a flip, or a push, you can cancel out some of their spin. Does that make sense? And then go back to your think circle. Go back to your think circle and kind of recap. Missing 1 serve is not going to cost you the match. But if you pushed it into the net and then you're like, oh, my serve return's bad. Push it in the net and say, oh, my serve return's bad. And then push it in the net, you can miss 3 serves in the same exact manner. Where if you adjust and readjust and readjust, hopefully by the end of the first game, you're going to have a good idea what kind of serves are coming. Laura?
Yeah.
The last question you asked me, I have to say, was pretty good. So I'm expecting a good one this time.
Okay.
You set the bar pretty high for yourself.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking, if you knew, I mean, I know in your case you probably would know something about them, but if you knew nothing about a player other than they have regular rubber, or, you know, right-handed, what do you do, like a diagnostic serve? You know, would you change your serves around to find out what their weaknesses
So now
are?
you're changing the topic. You're talking about your own serve. We were talking about serve return.
Yeah, no.
So do you want to keep going with serve return, or do you want to talk
No,
about
I
your
want
serve?
to talk about how you would test a new player.
On serve return or on serve?
On serve, if you're serving.
For your serve.
Yeah.
How would you test a new player? I would start off with your best serve. Okay? Sarah's best serve is backhand serve. Why would she start off the match with tomahawk? She doesn't really serve tomahawk. She can, but that's not really her best serve. So she would start with her best serve, and because she's most comfortable serving backhand for the middle of the table, that way she can use backhand or forehand. She would start with that serve. If that works, then she can keep going with it. If it's not working, then she can kind of cycle through her different serves.
I mean, I think you have to think about what you want to. You don't really know the other player. You want to try and set up your game.
Yeah.
Right.
So basically, whatever, like Samson, if your best serve is the one that sets up your game the best, then that's what you want to start with.
Okay, and then if it turns out they just
If
love
it
your
works,
serve.
you're on your way, right?
Okay, if it doesn't.
If it doesn't,
If
you
it
gotta
doesn't,
try
you just
something
keep
else.
digging.
Yeah.
You just keep trying for something else.
Right.
I mean, I like to find out what's working within the first half of the first game, but sometimes I don't realize it until the 3rd game. I'm down 2-0, and then I'm like, I don't normally serve that, but it seems to be working against this guy, so he's going to get a heavy dose of those.
May I answer?
Sure,
I haven't
absolutely.
seen the show from you guys, but I'll tell you tip from a Hungarian pro retired told me that his first serve is always to the transition point, and he wants to figure out if the guy's forehand dominant or backhand dominant. He says whatever side is dominant, that's he walk very long at the position point, and then he can see. And whatever rest of the serves and the rest of the shot of match are going to the other side.
Welcome, Stu.
Can I add on Jarvis's question? I mean, Samson has been, one of the things that I think about being not as good a player as Samson is like a lot of times I can't return, I'm having so much trouble returning these serves.
Same here.
That basically, I mean, I gotta get to the point where I don't know what they're doing with their paddle a lot of times, so I really gotta start watching the bounce on the table. I mean, and I know we've talked about that, but another thing I do if I start missing a lot of serves, is I always step back, I always take 6 inches back from the table. I always wind up moving, I mean, if they're all short, I'm not gonna do that, but if he's throwing something at me with some weird spin and it's coming back at me, I always move back a little bit. And I will say, I try not to let my opponent see me move back, because then next thing you know, they serve you short. So I try to make it a subtle movement back, and then let the ball come back a little further so I can watch the bounce better, and then some of the spin will come off at that point. But those are 2 more things that I do as someone who often has trouble, reading that spin.